Hello everyone, my name is Julie. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in to this video about cross stitching. This is my fourth Flosstube ever, and for any of you who have seen a video from me previously, you'll know that it was a very long time ago. I think I posted Flosstube number 3 back in April of 2025, so it's been quite a long time since I've come back. Here's my trusty sidekick, Oliver. I'm sure you'll see him in lots of videos. He always loves to make an appearance. For those of you who have tuned in before, thank you so much for encouraging me to come back and make another video. Making the first 3 and posting them, putting them out into the world was really such a delight, really unexpected, positive reception from everybody. I thought maybe 3 people would watch. Many more than that did, and I got so many kind words of encouragement. There was such great engagement, questions, which I'm always happy to answer on the previous videos, questions about my finishes, linens, different things. So that was the entire goal of starting a Flosstube. So it was really a great surprise to see that there was that reception. So I never meant to be gone for so long. Life got in the way, as it does, but I'm back, and I hope to be back in 2026 on a bit more of a regular basis. So this video is actually the second time that I'm filming this, this being video number 4. So back in, I think, mid-December, I filmed a fourth Flosstube. I went to 4 different retreats this past autumn. I went to Stitch in London. I went to Mrs. Parkman's Needlework Academy in Swindon. I went to the Ackworth retreat put on by the Sampler Guild and Linda Haddon, which was up at the Ackworth School in the north of England. And then I was fortunate enough also to go to Autumn of Abundance at the Attic back in the States. So I did a Flosstube featuring, talking about all of those different retreats to a greater or lesser degree, because, for things like Swindon, loads of people have done absolutely brilliant videos. And Audrey at Stitch Stitch Bead, Sean at Periwinkle Stitcher, I think Brenda and Laura talked about it in their Flosstube a bit. Karen and Bren of Fox and Rabbit talked about it a bit. So I didn't cover that in great depth, but I showed all my acquisitions, of which there were many, talked about the different retreats. Showed some finishes, gave some updates, and then when I went and watched the video footage, it was slightly out of focus, and also the video quality was quite poor because my lighting was not good. So I went ahead and scrapped that. I thought, I can't put this out into the world. Nobody wants me to sit in a dark room, ramble on a blurry screen. So I thought, let me just wait until I have a little bit more to say. And so I'm coming back at the start of January 2026. Today is the 11th, and hopefully this recording is going to go better. So instead of rehashing all of those retreats, I think some of those acquisitions will come up naturally over the course of time. But I thought today that I would go over a framing finish that I had from last year, the other stitching finishes that I've had since the last time I did a video, so since approximately mid to the end of April 2025. And then I wanted to talk to you about my 2026 stitching plans. So hopefully that will be an interesting video and provide enough content to keep you company, maybe while you stitch. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with a piece that I've showed previously. I think I've showed the finished version of it, but I got it framed by Total Framing. So I sent it off to them by mail. Terry is great at choosing frames based on what you sort of express your preferences to be, giving you different options. And of course they did just a stunning, stunning job on the actual framing. So, excuse me, Ollie. So this is Ruth Bates by Hands Across the Sea. And I've talked about her in previous videos, and you'll notice that she does bear, sorry, there's a bit of a glare on that. I'll try to hold that at an angle. She bears a resemblance to the Uffendale sisters, and that is because, and Nicola Parkman of Hands Across the Sea goes into more depth about this in the chart for Ruth Bates, but it appears that Ruth's aunt was the governess to the Uffendale sisters. So that's why there's a lot of similarities. But I absolutely love this. It's different colors than I would normally go for, but I am so pleased with the final result. I love the berry bowls. There's some satin stitching. some different sort of embroidery techniques, but I think that this is just absolutely gorgeous. Apparently this is a frame that Nicole uses a lot for her pieces, so this is quite in line with the style that you see on a lot of the hats. I think the frame suits the chart so well. And I really enjoyed stitching that, and even more so to have her up on my wall now as this framed finish. So I wanted to first show that because I think it's quite stunning. So that was my first, I think my only piece that I had framed in 2025. I sent, towards the end of the year in November, I sent off another piece for framing, but of course it hasn't been framed yet. I will put up a picture here. It is the Jacob's Ladder, aka Anne Foxtons 1840 chart by Kunst and Vliegwerk, who are a Dutch design company who are no longer in print. Anne Foxtons is an English sampler though, despite it being a Dutch company. And this is an out of print chart, as I mentioned. I managed to get it on the secondhand market, and I was lucky enough to go ahead and stitch her, and I have passed that chart along. But if you have an interest in stitching it, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, because I know it's quite a tricky one to find. So I'll try to add you to the list of stitchers who are working with that chart and sort of mailing charts around once people are finished stitching. But this is the final piece. I stitched it on a piece of, I think, 40 count vintage bisque by Lakeside Linens, and I used just the call for DMCs. I've talked about this before, but I actually wanted to stitch it in silk originally, so I did my own silk conversions to Swan 103s, wasn't happy with that. Then I had Mary at the attic do an overdyed thread conversion, or an overdyed silk conversion rather, and I got some absolutely gorgeous silks. And I started to stitch it, and it still just wasn't right, and I really loved the colors of the original piece. I had seen Julia of Bayou City Stitcher do hers and post it on Instagram. That's where I first saw the chart. And she just used the call for DMCs. So after 2 strikes with the different silk conversions, I thought, let me just stick with DMCs. And I'm so thrilled that I did. Because of course silks are gorgeous, but DMCs are equally beautiful. And the color range of DMCs is just, you know, bar none. And so it's got some really vibrant oranges. It's got some beautiful blues. It's just a stunning chart. So I'm really happy with that. So that is currently off at Total Framing to be framed. I'm sure I won't have it for quite some months, especially because I'm based overseas and it will be shipped to an address in the States. So it'll have to be my next visit when I go to pick it up, and I'm not sure when that will be. But in the meantime, I wanted to share with you some of my other finishes, as I mentioned in the beginning, for 2025, ever since April. So I wasn't as productive in 2025 as I have been in earlier years. I started stitching in 2021, and basically I finished the most number of pieces in 2021, slightly fewer in 2022, slightly, you know, even less in 2023, 24, and then 25 was my lowest number of finishes overall. I just didn't have as much time to stitch this year, unfortunately. I hope to change that in 2026, and I'll talk about that in a bit when I talk about my plans. But I did finish a few things, so I will go ahead and show you. So this is not in necessarily chronological order, just in the order of my pile, but in any case. So this first here is Snowball's Snowman. And this is by Bird in the Hand Primitives, who I think has done punch needle for a long time and has just started converting some of her designs into cross stitch, and I think releasing some original cross stitch designs. But that was stitched with all the called for threads, which were DMCs with a couple of weeks. And this is on a 40 count false starter by Number 12 Stitch Co. And it's just a beautiful piece of linen. I'll show you. I'm a sucker for a modeled piece of linen, and I think this modeling looks great with Christmas pieces because I think it makes the white really pop. So I'll definitely use the rest of that linen for another piece of stitching in, I'm sure, probably the near future. This was actually that was finished in early January 2026. So that was my first finish of the new year. And my second finish of the new year was Marianne Groom. And this is a Hands Across the Sea chart. You'll notice some very severe irregularities in the center with the sawtooth satin stitching. I got off count, didn't want to unstitch it. It's fine, you know, it's only for me to keep. But I fully copied Audrey's Stitch Stitch bead in one, stitching this as my blessing sampler, which she did back in 2025. Also stitching it on a piece of 56 counts white mustard by XG Design. And I'm gonna finish it as a little pillow, which Audrey also did. I'm really inspired by Brenda of Brenda and the Cereal Starter, Brenda and Laura, to do a little sampler, mini sampler bowl. So a lot of the small samplers that I have in my collection, I would like to stitch and turn into pillows and then have them in a little dough bowl. I really love that idea. But that was a really fun little small sampler. Next I have Sweet Bird Sing by Blackbird. This is supposed to be turned into a needle roll. And this is on a 36 counts Heartland, I believe, by Picture This Plus, which is the called for. I used the called for threads, which I would imagine were Weeks Dye Works. I'll talk about it in a minute, but this also comes with a little companion pillow, which I think I'm gonna start, and I might even start it later today, but I'm planning to turn that into a needle roll as called for. The next I have on a piece of, I think it's Mystic Fabrics Everything, but this is a Hello from Liz Matthews. This is Needle and Thread Stitch Society. And I think this is a 40 counts. Now this, I didn't use the called for threads. So I used some leftover Valdanis that I had from Souvenir Nicole, which was a Reflet de Soie sampler that I stitched a couple of years ago and had Vonna Pfeiffer kindly turned it into a pillow finish for me. So I didn't have, this called for, I think, Belle Soies, and I was missing quite a few of the colors, but the Valdanis were quite similar in terms of being greens and blues and pinkies, and so it just really reminded me of those colors. So I just did my own little thread conversion, but I'm gonna put up a picture of Liz's finish of this right here, because she finishes it as like a little pennant, a little flag, and I just absolutely adore this finish. I haven't gotten around to it, but I fully plan on finishing it just identical, following Liz's instructions. I think it's so creative, such a cute, fun way to display a piece of stitching. And this was originally from her Patreon. So I had seen her post this, that this was either in a video or maybe on her Instagram, but this was one of her new releases. And so I immediately signed up for her Patreon, got the chart, all of that. A lot of designers now have Patreons that have a lot of really gorgeous charts. So I recommend checking out hers. And so I imagine that will be released at some point in time to the broader public, but I'm just not sure when. But really, really sweet pattern. And then I believe last but not least, I have Halloween Sweet Bag by Notforgotten Farm. And this is on a piece of 36 counts Tin Roof by Weeks Dye Works. This is the old Weeks, so it's a bit floppy. But to be honest with you, I stitch in a frame, so it doesn't really bother me. I used all the called for threads, which I think were Weeks Dye Works. And this, I will put up a picture of the chart here because it has just the most beautiful finish. And of course, I plan on finishing it just like in the chart. Haven't gotten around to it yet. We'll see when I get to it. But I really, really love that. I stitched this when I was in the middle of still working on the Jacob's Ladder sampler, and I was just really finding that to be quite a grind. I wanted something small, something where I could get the dopamine hit of a finish, and so I just switched over to this. I was at the Stitch in London retreat working on this, and then I also took it the next weekend to Swindon, and I think I finished it there. But really, really cute chart. I mean, Lori at Notforgotten Farm is so creative, and I love so many of her designs. I know her really little littles are wildly popular now, but some of her other small charts are equally as gorgeous and equally as fun to stitch. So I really liked that little Halloween finish. So I think those were all of the pieces that I have finished since I last was with you here on a video. Oh yes. So let me though show you the latest piece that I started. So this all goes into my plans for 2026, which I will talk about in a minute. But one of my plans was I had a start on the 1st of January, which was my blessing sampler, the Mary Ann Groom that I just showed. And then my birthday was the 5th of January. And so I decided to stitch a new chart by Kathleen Littleton at Cross Stitch Antiques, and it's called Hannah Whitaker. And this isn't the chart obviously, but this is a little handout that Kathleen gave us. And so I fell in love with this swan here at the bottom. It's a little bit faded because this is of course the antique sampler. But we were at Ackworth. Kathleen did a talk on Quakers, showed this chart. I think she had previously released it at a different retreat, but she gave us the link where we could buy a PDF copy of the chart online, which is great for me since I always have a hard time getting hard copies of charts in any timely fashion. So I literally immediately, like as she was giving the presentation, bought this, have printed out now the PDF, and I kitted it up with all of the called for silks. Most of them are Glorianas, and then there's a couple of Belle Soies in the mix. And I'm sorry, I'm nowhere near as good as Nicole's needlework in terms of showing silks in a beautiful fashion. But you have just a lot of beautiful kind of browns and golds, but then these pinks and reds, this really vibrant blue for the swan. And so far, I've stitched on this for only 2 days because after I started it, I switched back to Mary and Groom because I wanted to finish that. And so these are the first few Quaker medallions. I've got almost the third one done. I need to do a little bit more here on the bottom, and then I'll go into the center. And so far I've just used Honey Bronze by Gloriana, which I just absolutely love. And this is being stitched on 46 count needle and flax Valley Forge. And I'll open the linen so you can see it a little bit better. But I think that's just such a gorgeous, again, slightly modeled, not as modeled as for example, the false starter linen, but a little bit modeled, and I just really, really love it. So I'm super excited to work on that more. So my plan though, I should talk about my plans for 2026 because it's highly relevant to my plans for progress on Hannah Whitaker. So on the 5th of January, I turned 40, so I had a very big birthday this year. I had quite a few people who knew it was my birthday who reached out and wished me a happy birthday, and so I really appreciate it. That's always lovely to hear on your birthday. But my plan for 2026 is to do 40 starts in the year. I know I won't have 40 finishes, but I do want to get to 40 starts. So what I did is I've gone through a little calendar and I have planned out approximately when I will do the 40 different starts, because I of course wanted to spread them out across the entirety of the year. I knew, for example, I would do a January 1st start. I knew I would do my birthday start. But I wanted to leave some flexibility. So I just have approximate ideas. And I can show you, I did it really on an old school calendar, just going through and like circling things. So let me grab that and I can show you. So I just downloaded a free chart, and as you can see, I've just circled little dates. There's a lot of flexibility there. So my next start is scheduled for the 19th of January, and then the 26th a week later. But maybe, if I stitch something and it's really small and I finish it right away, maybe I'll start another one sooner. Or if a new sal starts, or if I can get my act together and join the ladies that I do the full moon stitching with, if I can get back on track there, and with the full moon stitching, maybe start a new design. I'll definitely be adaptable, flexible throughout the year. But in general, most months I'm planning for about 4 starts. And then of course, to balance it out and make the even 40, a few months are just 3 starts, February being the shortest month, only 2 starts. So I'm planning to do 40 starts in this year. And that means that I want to focus primarily on smalls. I think the one exception to that will be Hannah Whitaker, which is of course a much bigger Quaker sampler. And I'm tentatively thinking that I might try to stitch on her 5 days a month. That's sort of copying a little bit of the idea of Karen from the former monogamous stitcher, the formerly monogamous stitcher. I'll put her channel name right here. So she's a great watch, but she always takes her oldest whip and makes it her focus piece, dedicates 7 days per month, just working on that piece until she finishes it. So Hannah Whitaker, of course, is not my oldest whip. It's actually one of my it's my newest start at this point in time. But I think if I do 5 days on it, I'll get some really good progress done this year, but still have time for all of my new starts. But it might be that I get so wrapped up with my new starts and wanting to finish all of those smalls that I don't get to Hannah every single month, and that's fine. I know eventually I'll finish her. But in the meantime, I thought, you know, I haven't settled exactly on the 40 charts that I will start, but I thought I always love to see different charts that people are thinking about starting and have plans for. So I thought I would just show you some of the 40 that I was thinking about working on this year. For those of you who are eagle-eyed and might count, there are actually more than 40 charts here. So I'm not saying that I will start every single one of these, but I have, you know, I want some flexibility. So I'm just gonna keep these in a pile, keep these set aside in my stitching room, and then I can turn to these and work on these, you know, start these with relative ease. So the first one is the companion piece to the Sweet Bird Sings that I showed my finish of from 2025. So I have a really poor quality printout from my work printer. So it's this little pen pillow here. But I think I'll do the version that's shown here that has Dear Friend. I already have or I still have, I should say, the Called For Threads pulled here. It's some Gentle Arts. Actually, it's a mix, some Gentle Arts, some Classic Color Works in some weeks. So very fun colors there, a lot of like pops of vibrant colors. I think I'll stitch that on the same linen as the sewing roll, the 36 count Picture This Plus Heartland. So that's one that I'm actually thinking I might start later today, and I have a particular person that I'd like to make the Dear Friend pillow for and send it off to her. So wish me luck on getting that started, finished, sewn, and sent off. I'm really bad with actually fully finishing pieces. I've got a big pile, and as you see for all the ones that I've shown here that I finished and didn't actually didn't fully finish rather. So that's one that I'm thinking of starting. Another that I have as a PDF is the Mary Mary Pin Keep by Stacey Nash. This is sort of in that small sampler style, but I'm in a really seasonal mood right now. Even though it's January, it's after Christmas, I really enjoy stitching in terms of seasonal stitches, autumn and Halloween, and also Christmas/winter. So I'm thinking I'm gonna still continue now that it's cold. We have snow on the ground here. It's in the minus degrees Celsius. I think I might keep working on Christmas. So watch this space, but that's my plan. And here are some of the other charts that I am planning to perhaps work on this year. The first is the Stacey Nash Birds of a Feather Needle Book, which, sorry, I'm not gonna take these out of the plastic, that'll just take too long. But lots of people stitch this and finish this. That would be a nice non-seasonal one. Another Stacey Nash is Sarah's Sewing Bag. I would say that for smalls, Stacey Nash is probably my favorite designer. I love her colors, I love her style. And so I think this would be not teeny tiny, you know, it's not gonna be a start and finish in one day, but I think that's really, really sweet. And maybe it will get me to actually whip out my sewing machine and actually do a start. So the next is Lucy Beam Coverlet Needle Book. And again, it's a little bit tricky to see there, but I think that's just so beautiful and delicate. And I would probably make that into a pillow rather than a little needle book. Here we have Letters for Santa by With Thy Needle and Thread, but Brenda Gervais. I've always loved this one, and I love the ticking, the red and white striped fabric that goes along with that. Next we have Bluebell Snickle by Notforgotten Farm. Now I saw Katie Strachan do a finish of this, and rather than, I believe her mother actually stitched it for her, and rather than do it as a Bluebell Snickle, she converted and did, I think, a burgundy color. And I want to say she stitched it in a Swall 103. And I think I made a note of what Swall 103 her mom used, and so I'm gonna do that in the same red, because these just aren't Christmas colors for me, but I love the design, and I loved the finish that Katie showed. So next I have plans to stitch at least one of the La-Di-Da bunnies. So you have three. You have Sweet Pea, you have Francis, and you have Sampler Hair. And all of these read quite spring to me, so I don't think I'm gonna stitch on these quite yet, but I would love to do one of those. And again, hopefully I can force myself to actually finish it. I also have plans I would love to do Anne Rudolph by Lottie Da. I just was watching a video yesterday where, and who was it? Oh, I'm gonna be completely blanking, but somebody was stitching this in Tanger or Tanger Green by Gloriana, a really deep kind of, you know, foresty green, or evergreen color, which I really, really thought was gorgeous. And I just love this. And I remember taking a photograph of the finish of this at Country Sampler in Spring Green, Wisconsin, and loving it. So I'd like to work on that, and that one's quite quick. I like the Artful Offerings Joyeux Noël. So I've always loved this one, and that I would do as a pillow finish. Teresa Kogut Snow Penny. I think this is really sweet. And I think this calls for, yeah, kudzu linen, which I have in my stash. That's another really cute one. A non-seasonal one, again, Stacy Nash, To My Friend Pin Keep Stack. So this, I mainly like the one big piece here, but I do like some of her little smalls as well. And I like that the four of them are of differing sizes, so they kind of go together as a set. I really think that one's cute. A Halloween finish would be another Stacy Nash, Jack's House Pin Keep. I did the House on Haunted Hill a couple of years ago. I actually stitched it twice, one for myself and one that I gave away. And so that I would like to stitch as like a little companion piece. I have a Tralala St. Nicholas. Tralala, who's a French designer. She uses a lot of atelier threads, which used to be dyed by one designer, but I know that a different woman has taken over the company as of at least when I started stitching, so maybe more than 5 years ago, so the threads are still available. They're really beautiful, or you can just convert them into threads that are more accessible to you. But I thought that was so cute. The Blue Flower Summer Valentine. These two little otters. I love otters, so I thought that would be a really, really sweet one. Going a bit old school, I got these, I think, off of a stash unload group, or it could be that I got them from like a Cobweb Corner, some sort of, you know, stash older chart type of website. But anyways, it's by Heartstrings. It's the Santa Factory. The first one's the Santa Factory series, where they had 12 different Santas. This one is January. I just love this like chubby Santa with his little hearts and his little staff. And then also by Heartstrings, it was the 12 Days of Santa. This is day 6, patchwork, and then he's got a little gingerbread button. Since I don't have a gingerbread button, nor do I know that I could procure one, I would probably just try to rechart it slightly and chart the gingerbread into the actual design of the coat. Here we have the Blackbird Designs Gathering Basket Pillow. I think I've seen April, May, June stitcher on Instagram. I think that's who I saw finish this and do a slight thread conversion, and I just loved it. But I'm a sucker for bird. I love a little pillow. I love that it's not super full. The way that the pillow's finished, it's got like a little bit of a give in the fabric. It's not maxed out, so I'd probably do the same. I've got tons of sawdust, but I've also still got walnut shells, so I could use either of those. Another Blackbird design pillow. This is Small Token, and it says pins and needles on it with this little bird. I think it's so cute. A Prairie Schooler Double Double. I love Prairie Schoolers designs, but I've never stitched any of them. So I love that little witchy cauldron. Another Teresa Kogut. This is Teeny Cross Stitch Chart Black and Jack. I am an unashamed cat lady, so I love anything with a cat. I think that's super cute. A couple of tiny little heart and hand finishes. This is Thanksgiving Bird. I love the long legs. And Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, so I'd love to have that. Probably as like a little pillow. I mentioned being a cat lady, so this is Cat Treat by the Trilogy. It's really cute. Another Stacy Nash, there's a big trend here. This is a Walk Through the Garden Pin Keep Stack. So again, I think if I could make myself stitch all three, I like that they're a cute little set there. I have Sheepish Designs Scary Wabbit. And I know I showed a Sheepish Designs, I think Valentine Rabbit in one of my earlier videos, saying that I thought I was gonna stitch it. I haven't stitched it yet. So this would be one of my first Sheepish Designs, but I just love it. And I think that wouldn't take that long at all to stitch up. Going back to Christmas, we have Christmas Swan by With Thy Needle and Thread, Brenda Gervais. I love that swan. I love the Christmassy, like sprigs of holly and peppermint coming out of its back. Early Workings, which I should say, I think I've mentioned this before, but those who have been wanting to get a hold of Early Workings charts and couldn't because she stopped printing her charts for quite a while, Tina Woltman is now back. You can follow her on Facebook and I think also Instagram, and you can order charts directly from her. I ordered, I think like 20 or so, maybe more, and she sent them out to me super quickly. This is a Merry Old Christmas. I love so many of her designs, but I just thought that was really charming. I have Birds of a Feather, Scared Silly, and this is, I do have a lot of the original Birds of a Feather charts. Fortunately, I was able to acquire them on secondhand, sources, but this is one that was recharted and redone by Sherry at Colorado Cross Stitcher, and I love this little pillow as the cat that says Eek. So I think I would stitch that one rather than the bigger piece with the pumpkin. From Rika at House of Stitch and Stash. This is Love Always. And when I was at Sampler Symposium last year, so January 2025, she was stitching on this. She was working on the model for this chart, and it was stunning. I was sat sort of behind her in the whole weekend. I'm like peeking on seeing her progress. But that flower bouquet is just so intricate and so beautiful. Another Early Workings, the Halloween Bat. Just a super quick bat, only calls for a couple of colors, so easily stitched. Another Prairie Schooler, Here Comes Santa Claus. This was a 2005 limited edition. Just love the style of that. This one is Astor Place, and the name of it just says Sled Noel. But definitely dated of its time, but I think that's the charm of this. So I would, I think, happily stitch that up. Maybe just convert to some different colors, although it calls for DMCs. So those are still very available and really consistent in dye lot. So, but I think I would maybe try to modernize the colors just slightly, but I think that's a really cute design. This is a Mosey and Me Speckled Bellied Bird. I just think Mosey and Me is so funky and so fun. So I really like that. I can see myself stitching that in summer. Holiday Inn, so Holiday Inn by Brenda Gervais With Thy Needle and Thread. It's one of these little house cutouts. Again, like her Halloween designs, I just absolutely adore. Here we have Primrose Needleworks, A Ghost's Alphabet. And I'm sure that I saw somebody on probably Flosstube stitch this, and I don't remember who, because I think it was several years ago. I managed to track down the chart, and I've been wanting to stitch on it ever since, but I just love the style of that. And even though I'm not a big Halloween fan, like of the holiday itself, I love Halloween charts and designs. So here we have Scattered Seed Samplers, Little Pear Tree Pin Keep. And this I got as a kit when I was a member of her club. This is from a few years back, so I think you can just buy it individually now. But this comes as, I've got it as a kit, so that'll be an easy one to do a quick start since I don't have to kit that up. I've got Hands to Work, Sir Dandy. This is just like a patchwork turkey. I don't know if it's meant to be turkey, or just a bird in general. I guess maybe just a bird. But I just absolutely love the patchworkness. So this could be a small sampler that goes into my dill bowl. It's only 141 by 112. Really love that. Ghosty Manor. I think I saw Lenny of the Sable Stitchers, and this is by Bent Creek, working or finish this, and I love it. I think that ghost is so cute. Here I have another Not Forgotten Farm, Cedar Waxwing. I love the autumnal orangey colors of this. And like I said, anything with a bird, I love. Here we have All Through the Nights stocking full. They have a few really cute snowman or like Santa type stockings, Christmas themed stockings, which I think are really sweet. Homespun Elegance Merry Noel collection, and the chart itself is Merry to All, which I like, this sort of more rustic and primitive Christmas. It's quite cute. Another Brenda Gervais with a needle and thread, Merry Noel. I have stitched her bloom chart that's a long pillow like this, but I really like this Noel, and I've wanted to do that for years. Have I finished bloom into a pillow despite having stitched it about 4 years ago? No, I have not, but that's all right. I'll get around to it someday. Raise the Roof. So this used to be a collaboration between Teresa Vanette, Kitten Stitcher, and is it Jen from Jen's Stitching Niche? I'm gonna have to put that information down. But anyways, this used to be their design company. They have a lot of really kind of clever and funny clothesline series, and this is Turkey Dressing, play on words, which I love, and the little pilgrim clothes there. I just think that's so sweet. I don't think those are in print anymore, although that could be wrong, but I've seen them on quite a few sites still, so I think you can still get your hands on that. Another Homespun Elegance, Wicked Tired. I'm always tired, so I love that this witch just embodies that, laying down there with her broom. Another La-Di-Da Mockingbird. This, strictly speaking, isn't a sampler, but I think could go in that little sampler dough bowl. I just think this bird is just absolutely stunning. The Blue Flower, Cozy Christmas Cat. I remember when this was first, even before it was released to the broader public, it was part of a club, and I like managed to source it. I love that this cat's wearing a little snowman Christmas sweater, so I need to stitch that. Here we have Leela's Studio Spring Parade set 1. I have both sets. Oh yeah, I have both sets right here. So that's set 1. You've got these little guys, these little Easter. I think set 2 is my favorite in that I love like the radish, I love the artichoke, but I'd love to stitch all of these. And I don't know if I would stitch them separately, or maybe I've seen some people stitch them like 3 or 4 in a line. So kind of like on one piece of fabric, looking as if they're kind of, you know, like in a race, or maybe even like a little train of these little vehicles. So I'm not sure how I would stitch those, but I'd love to start if I can make my mind up. Another Leela Studio. This is Noël en Rouge, Christmas in Red. She's got a couple of these that are these Christmas sweater ornaments, which I think are so cute. And I think those would be really fun to stitch up. Here we have Running with Needles and Scissors, Noel Buttons. And this is quite a novel, cute idea, so I think I would try to do that. Noel. Another Brenda Gervais, Jolly Happy Soul. This is a nice little winter piece that can stay up even after Christmas. I have one, I think only Lizzie Kate that has made it, but the Eek Boo Hiss. And of course, I like the hiss the best, the cat. Here's again the Valentine Wabbit by Sheepish Designs, which I've shown in a video before. But I just love it. I think it's so cute. And I have so many gorgeous pieces of red linen. I've got the Weeks Dye Works Red Pear, but then I also have some from Tabby Cat, some sort of one-ofs that I don't think have specific names, but that are that really sort of like pinky reddy color, which I think is just gorgeous. So I might stitch that up this Valentine's Day on one of those pieces. Here we have the Blue Flower Tudor Swan. I always have loved all of her Tudor series. Be Merry All, La-Di-Da. I think this was originally released a few years back in the Kitten Stitcher Advent box, but I think it's now available for a wide release. I just love this bird with the wreath. I see that I have so many with the needle and threads. I've got a lot of La-Di-Das and a lot of Stacey Nash. I think my like favorite designers really start to come out, and a lot of Notforgotten Farm. This is one of her older ones. It's Mary Black's Shoe Pin Keep. It's just that really prim looking kind of witchy type shoe, which I think is super cute. And that would stitch up really fast. So this is a Stitches by Ethel Chart Halloween Moon. Of course, I love the cat. And I think that the moon would be a perfect full moon stitching piece with the group of ladies. So we've got Julie of Kansas City Girl and Colorado World, Karen from Fox and Rabbit, and Sarah, who I think the Memphis stitcher, and she now owns a stitch shop down in Tennessee. But I think that would be a great chart. They're all much more diligent and dedicated to the full moon stitching than I am. I'm the like remedial one in the group. Also Twilight Moon. This is from Tiny Modernist. You can get a thread pack from Threadworks, which I got this from Top Knot Stitcher, whose shop I love. But I think that's just a beautiful piece. It's a little bit different from my normal style, just being a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more modern, but I think it's beautiful. Another Lizzie Kate, Tiny Tidings 8. And I think I want to stitch the little ho ho ho, that there. And I don't know if I would stitch all three or if I'd stitch it as just like a one. I might do 3 little separate pieces and try to do them as little mattress finishes so that they stand up as a block like that. I think that'd be super cute. Almost to the end, another Mosey and Me Sitting Pretty. I think that's so fun. Again, love the bird, love that funky looking pumpkin. Bit of an older chart. I'm trying to see if there's a year on it. No, but you know, the email for the Mosey and Me has an AOL email address, so I guess that shows you it's a little bit older. And finally, another Tralala Automne, so in autumn or in fall. This cute little witchy girl with her little mouse friends and little birds. I just think that's so cute. And this one calls for atelier threads, but also gives you a conversion for gentle art threads. So whichever threads you prefer to stitch with, she tells you what you can use without you having to do much guesswork. So those are some of the charts that I am looking to stitch this year. I'm sure other ones that are elsewhere in my collection. I have thousands and thousands of charts, so they might work their way in. I don't think that these are going to be all the ones that I do start, but I do plan on doing 40 of these throughout the year. So hopefully I will be, held accountable to that and actually stick with my 40 starts for my 40th year. But I thought that would just be a fun little way to get back into the swing of Flosstube, since my last video where I was just talking about the different retreats and everything got scrapped. So I would love to, I've already been watching so many 2026 Flosstube videos, whip parades, 2026 stitching plans. I'd love to hear from you what your stitching plans are. I always think that's so fun. It's a blast for me to kind of, just see, and it's really inspirational to see what other people are planning to stitch on. So please feel free to leave that below. If you have any questions about any of the charts or anything that I've shown, of course, please ask me. I'll do my best to answer those. And otherwise, I will keep you updated throughout the year. I hope to come back a bit more regularly in 2026 to share some of my progress. I'm in a new house, so I have a new craft room, a new stitching room that I've got some new organization in. And so I filmed my previous craft room in my last place, which was the background of, I think, my Flosstube number 3, maybe also number 2. So I had filmed that before I packed up. And then once I get my new room settled, even though I've been in this place already for more than 6 months, I might film an update just to show you how I organize things and show you all my bits and pieces. So that's one idea that I have. Otherwise, probably just sharing my, updates and acquisitions and all of that good stuff. But let me know if there's anything in particular that would be of interest for you to see. And otherwise, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.